Okay, ladies and gentlemen, 11.1 is a week away, and so many classes are a blast on the PTR right now. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down the most fun specs you could play heading into 11.1, and we got a lot of them. Of course, there's some power rankings attached to this list, just slightly, but this is primarily going to be based on how the class is feeling rotationally, thematically, and slightly from the damage meter's perspective. Most of this is all about fun, though, because all of you players with actual jobs, you don't need to stress about finding and figuring out what the best class is for that. So let's not waste any more time. Let's jump right into it. Starting off first, we have a 2-for-1 here on the Warrior with Arms and Fury. Right now, the last couple of weeks, Warrior has been getting buffed significantly across the board for their damage. And I think rotationally and design-wise, Arms and Fury have been in a pretty damn good spot across the board, and that includes for their hero talent trees as well. They've just been lacking that real punch that this class desperately needs to push them higher up in the rankings. And as of the last couple of weeks, boy, do they now have it. With Arms Warrior, there are times where my cleave on the PTR will crit for like 8 or 9 million damage, and my Demolish will crit for over 11 million. Big, juicy numbers are absolutely back on the menu for Warrior, and things feel amazing right now. With Arms, you're using your Overpower to make your cleave stronger in an AoE situation to just chop everything in front of you. You're spreading your Rend and your deep runes around to the targets, and you got those chunky go windows every like minute or so that involve your sweeping strikes, those huge Demolish, and your Warbreaker AoE damage tied with all this, and your offensive cooldowns. Everything just around you just gets melted. So if you're a fan of a class that's a little bit more of a slow pace, Arms Warrior is fantastic right now on all cylinders on the PTR, as long as they don't get nerfed. Press your damage cooldowns, and you hit shit really, really hard. It's really nice. So when it comes to Fury Warrior, it is a little bit more fast-paced, I will say. I don't think it's as strong as Arms at the current moment, but Fury right now has very high consistent DPS with a little bit more chores to micromanage, like keeping up your Enrage buff. I still personally prefer playing the Slayer hero talent tree for Fury, because thematically Mountain Fame really isn't for me, but with Fury Warrior right now, you're getting those really big numbers every minute or so because you have the short windows where you just funnel all of your damage at once to mobs around you with things like, you know, Avatar and Recklessness getting popped at once, Odin's Fury, Thunderous Roar, Rampage, Bladestorm. All of these things are being tied together in these short, like 15-second damage windows, and it feels so good to top the damage meters during this time. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit faster, more cooldown oriented, I would say Fury Warrior is, I guess, more preferable for you than Arms. Either way, I'm going to be honest, I'm loving both of these specs right now, and I think they're both going to be very solid heading into the new season, and there are loads of fun. When Warrior's dealing good damage, they're one of the best classes in the game, and if you're tired of just getting a headache trying to do your rotation, Warrior is definitely the opposite of that, and they're a blast heading into new season. Now, I think the biggest surprise on this entire list is going to have to go to the Devastation Evoker here. I know everybody watching this video has thought about playing Devastation at least once in their life, right? But I think it's time to give it a try. Thankfully, right off the bat, their Flame Shaper hero talent tree is making a very strong case at being the better hero talent tree for Mythic Plus this season, which means that you have a very solid amount of, you know, build variety and playability when it comes to raiding and Mythic Plus. So the longevity of playing this spec is definitely there. I think their tier set bonus also really makes them shine in AoE scenarios, because spreading your Shattering Stars allows you to really capitalize on that damage bonus with your big chunky spells like Eternity Surge and Flame Breath. And if you could combine that with your nuclear damage dealing, you know, Engulf ability in the Flame Shaper tree, boy oh boy, you probably have the highest burst damage in the entire game for AoE scenarios. So yes, Mythic Plus Flame Shaper is performing really well right now, and then going back to raiding, it's looking like you're going to swap over to Scale Commander because the consistency out of there is just so good with your Empowered Disintegrates tied with the Bombardment for your raid teammates. It's just really, really strong in a raid environment. It's so simple, no stress. Add cleave to your rotation, and it's really good there. So one of the reasons why I don't think Devastation ever gets enough love, sadly, is because, you know, Augmentation is always just broken every single season. It really shoves this class down in the dirt. But I think things are going to change this time around, man. I think Devastation, now having 2 really fun hero talent trees that are effective, you got some flexibility in their build design. Their damage numbers are absolutely there and comparable to some of the best. And I'm really loving Devastation Evoker right now. They're easily one of my favorite casters heading into the new season. Moving on next, believe it or not, you know we got to bring it up. We got to talk about the Enhancement Shaman, man. It's a problem. In 11.1, they're so much fun, dude. This class has 2 hero talent trees that could be meta, and you could play them at any time based off personal preference. In my opinion, I really love Totemic. It's the star of the show here. You put down that Surging Totem, constantly buffing your abilities, in particular your Lava Lash, to where you're literally just spamming it over and over and over again, hitting for millions of damage. You're smashing the ground, sundering the earth, exploding mobs, and it's causing your surging totems to deal more damage and explode for more, and then your sundering could just reset itself over and over again. I mean, dude, my jaw quite literally drops every time I play Totemic because it's just so much fun, man. I can't believe it's not only one of the best damage classes in the game, it's also this much fun. Not only that, enhancement, it also brings some of the most utility you can have for your group. You have the lowest cooldown kick in the game, constant stuns with Capacitor Totem, fantastic AoE potential, interrupt potential with Thunderstorm. I mean, man, you name it, Enhancement Shaman has it. It's the reason why this spec is just one of the most demand specs in the entire game. It deals some of the highest damage, bringing some of the most utility, and very fun. At this point, I'm really surprised Enhancement is as strong as it is for as long as it is, because honestly, I don't think I've ever seen Enhancement be meta or like S tier for like 2-3 seasons in a row. On top of that, their tier set is phenomenal as well. I love this spec, man. Gotta be one of the most fun, one of the most powerful overall. Fantastic spec heading into 11.1. Next up, though, we do have another 2-for-1, and that's with the Warlock. I know, big surprise here, being the Demonology and Destruction specs. We're going to be talking about Destruction. I'm going to say it flat out and simple. Destruction Warlock is blasting right now, and it's looking to stay that way heading into the new season. I love how simple the playstyle is on Destruction because it reminds me a lot of like ARMS and Fury Warrior. You have a couple abilities that straight up just hit hard as shit, and it's a straightforward rotation. You dot everything up with Wither using Cataclysm, you pop your Malevolence to enhance the damage, and then you channel Demon Fire to increase the duration, and then after that, you just pretty much spam Rain of Fire to dump all your Soul Shards, and use Havoc, Incinerate, and Conflagrate to generate a bunch more, and then you just spam Rain of Fire over and over. It's a very simple rotation, but goddamn, man, it's a lot of fun. It's very explosive, and seeing yourself at the top of the meters, of course, you're going to think you're having a lot of fun from that as well in World of Warcraft. So not only that, I think Warlock has always had one of the greatest class fantasies and themes in the entire game. And, you know, the class is always underplayed compared to some of the more popular picks like Paladin and Hunter. So it feels good to play something that not everybody is abusing or playing. Not only that, I would say you have really good utility to where, you know, a Warlock is always in demand. Hellstones are great. Soulstones are great as well. All this is solid for progression. And if you're smart and you use your gateway properly, you could save your group and raid, you know, pretty consistently. So Destruction also really has a nasty tier set bonus, really shoving their damage up to the top of the meters right now. And it just straight up gives them so much more bonus damage tied to that mastery. It's really nice. It doesn't impede on their rotation. It doesn't complicate things. It's just straight up a lot more damage. Moving on now to Demonology. I'm going to be honest. I think Demonology from a damage perspective is actually in a really good spot right now. One of my biggest gripes with Demo is that doing this complicated rotation of tracking your imps and all your demons and lining them all up in a big tyrant window, it was never really worth it because, to put it simply, the juice isn't really worth the squeeze. We know what happened the last couple seasons, but at this point right now on 11.1, their damage numbers are on par with some of the better specs in the entire game. If you've ever had any interest and love for pet classes like I do, Demonology is doing fantastic right now because they're going to be my main, personally, heading into Season 2. I personally love when a class can get super complicated, it can involve some pets, and it really shows a lot of skill expression and a high skill ceiling, so that's going to be for me. Also, the class fantasy of summoning all these minions to do your bidding and kill everyone around you, it's so badass in my opinion. I can't pass it up. Nevertheless, both these specs are doing fantastic. Easily some of the most fun in the entire game by far. Great specs heading into the new season. Now, coming up next, we got our other emo boy from the dark side, and it's going to be a great one with the Havoc Demon Hunter. But man, oh man, Havoc feels great right now. It's got to be on this list because this class has been neglected for so long, but no more because Blizzard has been treating them really well the last few weeks, and it could make me happier. They really buffed their damage and made their rotation so much easier to pull off at a high level in terms of quality of life. They took Fellblade and gave it the option to activate Inertia, which feels fantastic for the Aldrachi Reaver talent tree, and there's a really good chance that Aldrachi Reaver is the better spec overall heading into the new season. This spec feels so much better swapping from Fellscarred, in my opinion, for Havoc. I mean, trying to combine those windows with the, you know, tier 2 enhanced Blade Dance where it slashes 6 additional times with the Metamorphosis Death Sweep, and then you try to get it into Inertia, it is so much fun. It's so satisfying if you line it all up and get that combo going. It's a very fast, you know, pace melee DPS spec that doesn't really have too many buttons. And I really appreciate that the, you know, cooldown reduction on I-Beam is a lot lower because that's my favorite ability to press probably in the game. And it is one of their highest damaging abilities out there. So from a class fantasy perspective, I think it's awesome. But listen, overall, the latest buffs that this class has gotten has done wonders for the spec. They cleaned up a lot of the animation canceling, so you could do stuff like activate Fellblade immediately after you Vengeful Retreat, so you instantly go right back to your target after dashing backwards. It feels so good now. I think Demon Hunter is on the menu for me heading into Season 2. I might have to dust off the alternate character because this little emo boy He's a badass heading into the new season, man. Very, very fun spec. If you like mobility and pulling off some badass micro burst cooldown windows, man, this class can absolutely be for you. Next up for range DPS, we do have the explosive Fire Mage. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I always love when Fire Mage is the best mage spec. I think they have the coolest animations, the best sound effects, and a great class theme. I mean, it's all about melting faces, right? I really appreciate that Fire Mage also has multiple build varieties depending on your playstyle. Personally, I love playing the Living Bomb, you know, Frostfire Mage build, where you're just constantly in the combustion state, afflicting people with Living Bomb, and it just spreads to dozens of targets when you're in Mythic Plus. And it's so satisfying seeing all those little explosions go off and everything just exploding around you. It's very, very fun. There's also, you know, some Sun Fury builds that look to be strong heading into Season 2 as well. So I think it's going to be kind of like dealer's choice heading into the new season, which seems great for Fire Mage. It's so much fun, the fact that, you know, you're casting instant cast spells most of the time. It really pushes Fire Mage into being that fast-paced caster that it's always been, and it really gives it an identity to love. They got their new tier set that I also really appreciate. It enhances your combustion windows to deal even more damage, while also decreasing the cooldown on your combustion occasionally, so you get it in more often. Because by far, the most fun thing about Fire Mage is being in your combustion state. So that's definitely a win, in my opinion. I'm gonna be honest, I think Fire Mage may just be a contender for one of the top DPS in the game next season, depending on your comp for Mythic Plus, because the fact that you don't really have an AoE cap on some of your hardest hitting abilities is very, very impactful for that, and it's going to make them very strong in the higher keys, and I think they're going to be dominating next season. Next up, for one of the more fun melee DPS specs, we of course got to talk about the Windwalker Monk. Listen, Windwalker Monk is all about flying around at a fast pace and doing a combo of attacks that feel very impactful with one of the highest burst DPS cooldown windows in the game. If you're a fan of big damage cooldowns, Windwalker Monk definitely fits that category, similar to, I would say, Arms Warrior, Frost Death Knight, stuff like that, to where they press their cooldowns and shit just dies. Their damage spikes up drastically during that time, and you feel like you're doing nuclear damage. I will say, their damage outside of these windows tends to slow down. I will say that, but their rotation stays the same, whether they use cooldowns or not. And in my opinion, it's the most fluid rotation in the entire game. When Windwalker Monk, they don't have many procs that can impede on their rotation. It's the only class in the game that strongly benefits the player whenever you don't press the same button over and over again based off their mastery. And Blizzard's also made it a really big point to fix the way their stats affect them, which include haste and mastery, which is their primary stats. So Windwalker Monk at the moment is scaling significantly better than it has ever been, and the stats feel very good on them. Things are very, very fluid. So the damage is consistent and can spike up to crazy numbers during your cooldown. You got both these hero talent trees that feel effective and fun as well. And I personally think thematically, this may not be a popular opinion, but I think thematically Windwalker Monk is badass. I've rocked the Panda Windwalker Monk for a very long time and played it heavily during, you know, expansions like Roll as a Drainer and Battle for Azeroth, but I've had it as an alternate character for a long time here or there, and since then I'm always happy whenever I pick it up and do some Mythic Plus dungeons every once in a while. With the new damage increases and the staff changes and everything like that, as well as the brand new Slicing Wind ability, I think they're going to be on the menu for a lot of people heading into a new season. They're a very, very fun class that you would not be disappointed in playing. And lastly, for DPS, I got to bring up the Outlaw Rogue. I don't think they're performing the best right now, but I think thematically, Outlaw Rogue is one of the coolest specs in the game. You know, being that mix of a pirate and a rogue, jumping around in and out of combat, you're shooting your pistols, you're shotgunning people in the face, you're slicing enemies around you, rolling dice to enhance your damage. I mean, listen, it's a badass roleplay spec that I've enjoyed since its change from combat Outlaw. I will say one of my biggest gripes with Outlaw Rogue was the fact that so much of their damage was tied to RNG with Roll the Bones, as well as now Fatebound being their main hero talent tree spec. But with this season, man, everything has changed. Blizzard has buffed them drastically over the last month or so, in which they can get matches on their Roll the Bones way easier, as well as making their tier set enhance that chance even further. So now we're at a point where you're having 4 to 6 buffs going on in your Roll the Bones very, very often. And if you know anything about Outlaw Rogue, the more buffs you have with your Roll the Bones, the way better the class feels. So the fact that you have constantly 4 to 6 buffs going on, it makes you feel like a freaking superhero. You're using Keep It Rolling to make sure they're all up for like 45 seconds to a minute at a time. You're generating extra combo points. You're regenerating energy faster. Your cooldowns are coming back lightning fast. Your damage is increased, and everything about the class just feels very fluid, and it's like in perfect harmony. In my opinion, this is the best iteration of Outlaw Rogue I have ever played, and I've been playing them non-stop since BFA. So I think anyone who's had any interest in picking this class up now is going to be the time. And the idea of leaving it up to fate and you fixing the dice to make sure you win every time, that's a badass class fantasy. Very, very fun heading into the new season. And lastly, I do want to bring up a couple honorable mentions for the tank role as well. I do play that role also. Sorry for you healers out there. I don't really consider myself experienced at all with them, so I don't really have much to say, sadly. I apologize. First up, for tanks, we do got to bring up the Protection Paladin. I'm going to be honest. In my opinion, I think Prop Pally is pretty much the perfectly designed tank head to toe at this point in the War Within. They dominated the first season, and if you think about it, it's all for really good reason, right? They're incredibly strong. They bring fantastic off heals. They have very powerful on-demand defensives that come off cooldown quickly. They can deal insane damage numbers with spamming Avenger Shield, Judgment, Shield of Righteousness being off the global cooldown, and, you know, they have a hero talent tree in Lightsmith that buffs themselves and their allies. At this point, they're just unmatched. In my opinion, they're everything you'd want in a tank, and they're so much fun to play. I've played every tank spec in the game, and if I'm being completely honest, Prop Paladin checks every box for me personally out there. The only reason I ever stopped playing them is because they became by far the meta tank. And that's not really something I like to do, is play the meta, you know? I like to play some off-brand specs and torture myself, so I backed away and started playing my Blood Death Knight. Nevertheless, though, it's a very fast-paced spec, very powerful cooldowns, consistent AoE burst damage that's through the roof, the best utility in the game, you name it, they got it. Super fun, great heading into Season 2. And lastly, for our most fun tank, I'm gonna be honest, I gotta give it to Vengeance, man. Right now, Vengeance Demon Hunter is very strong for the new meta that's coming, which is, you know, the range caster DPS meta, because they check all the boxes that ranged classes would like. They want that 3% damage caster buff. They have tons of interrupts and stops to handle on their own for all these packs. With all their sigils and stuff, they have by far the best damage in the game when it comes to all the tanks. They're incredibly durable, and they have fantastic sustain up there with Blood Death Knight. I mean, listen, Vengeance Demon Hunter is fantastic right now in the PTR. I will say I don't love their tier set bonus, as it doesn't really feel good for either, you know, Fellscarred or Eldrachi Reaver. So at this point, I think that is their one weakness, is their tier set's kind of blech. But either way, both their hero talent trees are playable, could be meta, so you have a nice little, you know, flexibility amount there, and they're just a great tank overall. I also find it really awesome whenever I'm transformed into my Metamorphosis, you know, Demon State for Vengeance. It really makes me feel like a monster that just can't be controlled. It just can't be tamed. I'm healing myself so much, dealing some nice damage. My defenses are up through the roof. It's a lot of fun just grouping them all up together, you know, interrupting them, stunning them, slowing them, all that stuff, and then just kiting them as long as I can for my caster DPS to kill them if I need to. So I think it's great thematically and a very fun, you know, gameplay style heading into a new season that I think a lot of tanks will love out there. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap up today's video on the most fun specs you can play heading into a new season. Remember, this is based off class theme, the rotation and their tier set bonuses, as well as the class performance slightly, and just overall the build variety. I know typically we make videos based off, you know, what's performing the best, but I personally love making the video that is all about fun, you know what I mean? But let me know what you all think about it in the comment section below. What you guys think is the most fun spec heading into the new season, and if it was on this list. If I didn't get to it, gotta try to change my mind in the comment section below. I want to thank you all so much for watching. My name's Sky from the Comeback Kids. I will see you in the next one. Peace. One last note we wanted to make: if you're looking for a guild or people to progress through Mythic Plus with or raid with next season, the Comeback Kids are recruiting, and any and all players are welcome to come on down, play with us. We're looking to fill out some new members for the raid. Oh my god, we fucking did it. Oh my god, let's fucking go, bro. Let's fucking go. That's how that shit gets done. If you're on the Horde, you can simply just go to the guild tab and search up the Comeback Kids, and we should pop up. Make sure you do have the guild size on any so you can actually see us. Either way though, if it doesn't work, you just use the Discord link in the comment section below. Hop in there and verify, get yourself in, and then we can get you invited by you posting your name and server under the guild invite tab.